Alex came in for another one of his one-day work marathons. First, he built a temporary wall to delineate ours from theirs. Then he moved on to assembling the new cabinet saw.
That's how you cut your finger off on one of these things.
Yeah. You want gloves?
And I taped off the seams to contain the dust. The dust is definitely ours. The saw tabletop is shipped in 3 separate pieces. It is most important to keep them plumb, flush, and level with one another. We used a gorgeous piece of 80/20 as our flat guide across the table. So delicate a calibration, we were using the thickness of paper tape to adjust one side. It was right about this time last year, it was November 10th to be exact, that I was outside in my driveway in the fall leaves making my tongue and groove ceiling boards for Van 01. Here I am a year later, almost to the day, and what am I doing? More homemade tongue and groove. You'd think I would learn. I swore I'd never do those boards again. This is a little different. This is actually all the unused cut-offs of plywood that we had laying around from the floor. 1/2-inch plywood, and there were 2 reasons why we decided to use this. The first and most important reason was we're conserving our ceiling height. If you remember, we took a lot of room from the floor with our 1-inch tube and 1-inch foam insulation, 1/2-inch ply on top of that, 1/4-inch finish floor. I had to pad down the ceiling because we just didn't have enough depth in there for the insulation package that's going in. So we lost another 3/4 of an inch. So to go with a 3/4-inch board, we didn't want to give up that 1.5 up there. So believe it or not, 1/2-inch versus 3/4, it matters. Every 1/4 inch matters. So what I did is I ripped down all this plywood, 1/2-inch, and I put a dado on each side, flip-flop dado. Then I did a chamfer on the edges, and now they're ready to go. They're ready to be installed. These are glued and screwed. These cross cleats I'm gluing and screwing to the back of the ceiling planks were not originally born for this job. Their initial purpose was to be a part of the pine and walnut ceiling system in Humble Van 01, which I decided to change midway through. So it appears my van builds will be connected to one another. I like that. And the way this system works, if you notice the tabs that are sticking out, these are 1x2 tabs, they're sticking out beyond the edges of this module, as I would call it, ceiling module. These line up with my ceiling struts that go across the roof of the van inside. So what we do is we put this in place and we just run it right up against each of the struts. Are we centered?
Yep. Painted over the line, but I can see it through the paint.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. There we go.
What it gives us is a stopping flange for the next ceiling member that comes in. I gotta hold it in the center, I gotta grab my screw gun. See? It looks about right. Not gonna go. Oh, I went all the way in. Yep, right there. Wow.
It's like cotton candy.
Exactly. Yep, that was a good one. Very nice.
Oh no,
Hang on.
reverse.
Yeah.
Use that. I'm gonna say we put the insulation up and then George ripped it back down.
That ceiling member is going to have tabs on this side. So they kind of lock together like a click-lock floor. That's the system. These boards run straight down the middle of the van. They are removable, but not necessarily meant to be for any of the future maintenance or alterations you may want to do. That's where you would take off the side panels. So Dave and Irene painted these up, primer and paint, low VOC, or no VOC actually, I think. I think they got 4 or 5 coats on here, sanding in between. Beautiful. So as you can see, we're going to wire in our puck lights. I think I called this barrelizing the last time I did it in the other van, but that's basically how these are going in. Looming. Everybody should do it. All the cool kids are doing it. Here's what looming is. A lot of van builders will run their wire through the van like this. You buy single strand wire and you run it. I get my wire, which is this wire, inside another insulated jacket, so it's protected even further. Then I protect it even further with loom. Loom. Okay? Let me explain what loom is. This is a split plastic sheathing that would go around the outside of your wire. Like that. You see that? You see this? Triple protection. Now, it's split, so you got to get this in there. It's impossible to do, okay? It would take you weeks. So you go on Amazon and you get a looming tool. This little piece of crapola tool is a lifesaver. It goes right on the wire and then you spin it on, right? Now here's what this does. You see this part? Can you see that? There's this little, what do you call this here? Whale tail, a dovetail, I don't know. But what this does, because it's got these ridges in it, it spreads the loom. You see how that is? It spreads the loom and feeds the wire into the loom. There's no way to do this without that tool. If you're going to wire a van, first of all, get this Encore stranded wire, as opposed to anything that's solid core and single insulated. Here's what I do. You get it started. So you get your loom on there an inch or so, and I tape it. Okay? A little bit of tape. Don't pull the tape like I started to do. I'm using the new scissors that Irene and Dave bought me because it seems as though I can't keep track of scissors in the shop. So they bought me a bunch of scissors to lay everywhere in the shop. Now, this tool goes on the wire with the whale tail facing into the loom. So getting it started is a little tricky. Now, if anybody's got a secret for that, by all means, put it in the comments. But once you get that whale tail inside the split loom, you grab this end and you pull. Look at that. Look at that. It's in. It doesn't matter how much loom I need or how much I got. This tool feeds the wire into the loom. Okay? Try it without the tool. Try it. Right there, look, and keep going. What I like to do is I like to leave a little leader on either side of the loomed wire for splicing, working in the box. That's how I bring a wire to the van and run it. So this is a temporary wire cart that I made up simply using a hand truck. And I got some corner braces, some heavy-duty corner braces. I took them over to my new bender and I bent them to shape. The whole intention with this is to keep it portable and temporary. I still want to be able to use this as a hand cart. So I just developed this system where with just some scraps I had in the shop, I could make a wire rack for all of these spools of wire. And then to keep them straight and organized so you don't make mistakes, the spools are marked with the wire gauge and the wire is marked. But I put a bigger notification, a bigger reference on each of these things, and it corresponds with a number up on this piece of wood that I just screwed in very simply, very simply. So you would have, you know, the wire gauge corresponds with the spool that's right under it. 10-2, 12-2, 14-2. These are DC runs, okay? When you have an AC run, you go 12-3, for instance. It's a hot, a neutral, and a ground. So I've also marked those DC and the gauge, and this way you're minimizing any mix-up, any problems you might have. Where's 12-2? Here's 12-2. So this goes on next. And that's what I got going on here. And it has served me very well. Of course, I go back in when I do a day's wiring. At the end of the day, I go back in and I proof, like a triple proof of what I ran and why I ran it. And if the length going out to the device and back is accurate to what I established it was. And that way, we don't have any mistakes. And then there'll be no problems down the road. My van buddy Ed came by for a visit on his way home from the mothership. Ed's van is both a technological marvel as well as a beautiful, cozy home on wheels. I had the pleasure of photographing this beauty for Advanced RV just after it was completed. Its name is Libertas, the Roman goddess of freedom. And anyone who has experienced van life holds a unique and dear sense of freedom in their hearts. So a few thoughts now about wiring a Promaster van as opposed to a Sprinter van. Big difference. The Sprinter van, now in my defense, first time I ever wired a van, Sprinter 01 took me about a week and a half to run all the wire in that van. This van, the Promaster, with help from my loom goons, took 4 hours to wire as opposed to a week and a half. Now here's the reason. This is the big reason. I don't know if you can see this area of the chassis. It runs all the way down front to back. It is a massive wide open channel to run wire. There are no interruptions. In a Sprinter, there's an interruption every 15 inches. See this piece here? It runs all the way down. Another uninterrupted channel to run wires. Down here, front to back, a third uninterrupted channel. Protected, secluded. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything more. Pardon me. On both sides, there are 3 uninterrupted, massive wire chases running down the van from the front to the back. In the rear of the van, there are massive wire chases running all the way around the back opening, up, across, and down. What a joy to wire a Promaster as opposed to a Sprinter. Having said that, the Sprinter is in a league of its own. I haven't seen another van that comes close in terms of the quality of materials, the strength, the thickness of the metal, the sheet metal that's used, the welds. Everything about the fit and finish in a Sprinter is head and shoulders above a Promaster. Having said that, I would still run a Promaster as my personal van because there are too many issues with a Sprinter in terms of the engine, the fuel, who can work on it, where they are to work on it. We'll get to that in another video. But I will say this, I am really excited for the Ford Transit remake this summer. That, I think, is going to be a game changer. Man, did I get off topic, huh? But it had to be said. It had to be said. We're going to get into a full discussion about that because they all have their pros and cons. If I were to be building my personal van right now, it would be a Promaster over a Sprinter. That's right, I said it. We'll talk about that later. Wiring. This van is using the conventional, everyone's seen it, AC/DC distribution panel. This is in just about every RV, from the big, beautiful Newmar Class A's all the way down to the Travados. This is what they use. The reason we're using it here is because the location of our distribution panel is low and in the rear of the garage. It is not showcased like I showcased my breaker panel in Van 01. There's no need to put that kind of a fancy breaker panel down low in the garage. So we're using conventional. This is AC and DC. So all our wires are originating in that spot, and then I take them up that rear chase. I can take them through this chase. It was a joy to wire this van. It was very easy, very easy. You see all this beautiful white fluffy stuff? This is the bottom of Thinsulate. Dave and Irene mounted this Thinsulate to the bare ceiling of the van, ceiling, the chassis, black side up. Black is not a vapor barrier. We tested it. You can blow air right through it. That's not a vapor barrier. That means we can layer it, double layer it, triple layer it. We can flip it, put it to use. When you've got this bare white Thinsulate from 3M themselves, in their specification literature, this is considered airspace. So logically, the next layer down is Reflectix. Reflectix only works if it's got an airspace between it and the heat source. So the sun's beating down on the roof of the van, and it's going to be slowed. The heat from the sun passing through the Thinsulate, the transmission is slowed by the Thinsulate. It then hits the Reflectix, and because this is an air gap, an airspace, the Reflectix reflects the heat back up out of the van. What heat escapes through or passes through the Reflectix is picked up by the heavy mass vinyl. The heavy mass vinyl absorbs heat like you can't believe and holds it. Take a piece of this and put it out in the sun for 15 minutes. You won't be able to hold it. Don't ask me how I know that. So that goes up last. right? So now whatever heat did pass through the reflectix is absorbed by the heavy mass vinyl. If any of that heat radiates past the heavy mass vinyl, you've got wood as your last barrier. This is also, wood is a very good insulator on its own. This center section is the handmade tongue and groove we did out of plywood. It's a decorative detail, and it's largely a permanent install. Although it's very easy to remove it, it's intended to stay in place, and any insulation or wiring you may do can be done between these layers. On the sides, we will have 1/4-inch Luan that is backed with 1/4-inch foam insulation, and then it's encapsulated with marine vinyl. And those panels will click lock into these and then be screwed in over here on the side. So these longer, thin side panels are what you would want to take down if you wanted to run a wire. Perfect example is Dave and Irene bought a manual crank Fiamma awning. On my advice, actually, they wanted the electric motorized push the button. It goes, but they can break, they can fail. There have been people having trouble with them. I've had a Fiamma manual crank awning now for years and years, and I've never had a problem with it. And this doesn't hurt. I could do this all day. So that's what they started out with. But we ran a line in case they want to upgrade and install the motor in a later future date. We ran the line. So what he would have to do, in fact, this is it right here. So we're going to coil this up and tuck it away. If he wants to get to it, he just has to unscrew this large panel on this side, swing it down, unclip it from this side, and set it down, and he's back to this. He's open. He can do what he needs to do. Options.